The United States built walls. China found a door. But what just slipped through wasn't a whisper, it was a flood, and no one can stop it now. In early 2025, while Washington scrambled, Alibaba dropped a 5-nanometer RISC-V chip that no blacklist could touch. Proof that the flood wasn't coming. It was already here. While US officials raced to plug every hole with sanctions and blacklists, Beijing moved silently, slipping through a side path no one guarded. And now, the dam has cracked wide open. If America thought technology supremacy was secured by rules, China just rewrote the rulebook, and the consequences are already surging through your phone, your servers, and your future. But here's what almost nobody saw coming. China didn't need a tweet. It didn't need a speech. It didn't even need a threat. It just quietly built a chip that US sanctions couldn't even touch, and dropped it into the global system like a stone into a calm lake. No headlines, just ripples, spreading faster than anyone could stop them. Because if what's happening right now continues, it's not just American chip supremacy that's slipping away. It's global control over the future itself. And the wildest part? The weapon China used was completely legal. While US policymakers escalated chip sanctions in 2023, focusing on cutting-edge lithography and AI accelerators, Chinese engineers maneuvered around the battlefield entirely. Instead of chasing forbidden technology, they embraced RISC-V, an open-source chip architecture that exists outside Western control. According to Nikkei Asia, Alibaba's T-Head unit achieved a major milestone in late 2024, developing a 5-nanometer RISC-V processor designed for AI workloads, a direct counter to NVIDIA's dominance. Meanwhile, Zhaoxin, once dismissed as second-rate, produced RISC-V CPUs capable of powering China's domestic server networks, avoiding x86 and ARM dependencies. These moves allowed China's chip production to surge 63% year-over-year in 2024, as reported by Bloomberg. No patents infringed, no sanctions broken. A new playbook was written in real time, and US regulators, focused on old choke points, barely noticed. But what makes RISC-V so explosively dangerous to the global tech hierarchy isn't just that it's legal, it's that it's viral. RISC-V isn't simply a different blueprint, it's the demolition of the old gatekeeping model. Created at the University of California, Berkeley in 2010 to democratize chip design, RISC-V allows any entity, from garage startups to sovereign governments, to design their own processors royalty-free. In 2024, the Linley Group reported that RISC-V designs outpaced ARM designs for new IoT products for the first time, signaling a tectonic shift. Without royalties, China could scale RISC-V across everything from AI servers to smart cities without pouring billions into US firms. The open nature also enables faster adaptation. China's Star 5 released 3 successive RISC-V chip upgrades within 18 months, a cycle traditional ARM licensees can rarely match. The architecture's flexibility, combined with China's scale, effectively weaponizes openness into market dominance. Yet critics argue that without strict enforcement standards, RISC-V ecosystems could fragment. Whether that fragmentation slows China's momentum remains an open and volatile question. But if the US assumed it could freeze China's tech rise with sanctions, the next chapter shows just how badly that assumption misfired. Instead of halting China's chip ambitions, US sanctions acted like a catalyst. According to the Wall Street Journal, China's government accelerated semiconductor subsidies, investing over $140 billion into domestic chip firms between 2022 and 2025, while slashing foreign technology imports by 17% over the same period. Companies like SMIC pivoted aggressively, retooling equipment to manufacture 7-nanometer chips without EUV machines, a feat verified by Tech Insights in late 2024. Meanwhile, Yangtze Memory Technologies sidestepped NAND flash restrictions by redesigning architectures for older, unrestricted nodes. Far from isolating China, export bans forced rapid adaptation and fostered an ideological shift towards self-sufficiency. As Chris Miller, author of Chip War, notes, "When you sanction in a complex supply chain world, you don't stop development, you just reroute it." The very pressure designed to stall China instead hardened its resolve, locking the US into a slower, more reactive footing. But Beijing isn't just insulating itself. It's reaching outward. quietly building alliances that challenge US tech supremacy at the source. By weaponizing RISC-V's open architecture, China is methodically seeding an alternative tech ecosystem worldwide. In 2024 alone, China signed 65 cross-border semiconductor deals focused on RISC-V adoption, partnering with Brazil, Russia, South Africa, and Indonesia, according to South China Morning Post. Rather than export finished products, China is exporting frameworks, design blueprints, fabrication training, and low-cost intellectual property. Huawei's Harmony OS, now running on over 300 million devices, is being rebuilt from the ground up around RISC-V, avoiding US software patents entirely. In Europe, firms like Siemens and Bosch have begun developing RISC-V industrial controllers, seeing them as insurance against future supply shocks, as Handelsblatt confirmed. The goal isn't technological mimicry, it's sovereignty. Beijing envisions a world where US patents, sanctions, and export controls are rendered irrelevant because the infrastructure itself bypasses them. But does turning openness into dominance come without risk, or is Beijing building an empire on foundations it ultimately can't fully control? Open source innovation accelerates at a velocity no centralized bureaucracy can match. In 2024, contributions to the RISC-V International Consortium surged by 80%, with Chinese engineers leading 52% of new technical proposals, according to the Linux Foundation's latest report. This means China isn't just participating, it's setting the standards. Open collaboration across India, Brazil, and Europe has transformed a RISC-V into a truly global architecture, creating a self-reinforcing loop. The more countries adopt it, the more entrenched it becomes, and the harder it gets to displace. The financial calculus is shifting too. Gartner projects that RISC-V devices will claim 25% of the global CPU market by 2027, up from just 6% in 2022. However, the open source model also carries vulnerabilities, fragmented security protocols, uneven quality control, and the ever-present risk of competing standards splintering momentum. Whether China can lead an open source revolution while keeping it unified remains an unanswered and critical test. When China embraced RISC-V, it didn't just gain a chip blueprint, it gained a diplomatic weapon. According to Reuters, by early 2025, China's RISC-V alliances spanned over 40 countries. This isn't speculative. Gartner projects that RISC-V architectures could power 25% of global CPUs by 2027, up from just 6% in 2022, signaling a tectonic rebalancing. If adoption continues at this pace, China's vision of a tech ecosystem beyond US control becomes not just plausible, but probable. With 40 nations already tethered to China's RISC-V blueprint, the old semiconductor map isn't just redrawn, it's redacted. Yet, RISC-V's open nature creates friction too, with rival standards emerging across Europe and Japan, raising the risk that China's influence might dilute before it consolidates. Whether RISC-V remains a Chinese-led platform or fractures under global pressure could decide whether Beijing commands, or merely contributes to, the next tech era. But while China builds new roads, is America still trying to defend broken bridges? The next fault line reveals a critical miscalculation. Sanctions, blacklists, and trade barriers, once lethal tools, are increasingly mismatched against a world built on open architectures and decentralized innovation. As the Wall Street Journal noted in April 2025, despite tighter export controls, Chinese semiconductor firms reported a 30% rise in overseas licensing revenues, mostly from nations bypassing US supply chains. Chris Miller, in a foreign affairs essay, warned that defensive measures built for a supply-driven world don't work when software-driven innovation reshapes the battlefield. Meanwhile, major US allies, including Germany and South Korea, have quietly expanded R&D funding for RISC-V alternatives to hedge against future sanctions volatility. While Washington clamps down on traditional semiconductor trade, Beijing is redefining the race itself. Not by fighting harder, but by fighting smarter. Whether America can pivot to compete in this new open-source landscape remains uncertain, and delay may be the most dangerous enemy. But if you think it's just tactics that are outdated, the scoreboard itself might already be shifting without a shot being fired. While much of Washington's focus remains locked on 7nm and below manufacturing nodes, China is racing ahead into uncharted territories. In late 2024, Alibaba's Damo Academy announced the world's first commercially viable RISC-V-based neuromorphic chip, capable of mimicking neural network behavior with 50% less energy than traditional architectures, according to MIT Technology Review. Meanwhile, Tsinghua University's Quantum Lab unveiled a prototype for quantum-secure RISC-V processors, aiming to future-proof data infrastructure against next-gen cyber threats, a full cycle ahead of US commercial offerings. Financially, China's AI chip industry alone grew 38% year-over-year in 2024, reaching $18.7 billion per Bloomberg Intelligence. These breakthroughs suggest that China isn't merely catching up, it's vaulting into niches where the US has no dominant presence yet. If innovation defines supremacy, the battleground may already be lost in places Washington hasn't even fortified. But this isn't just a story about innovation. It's a story about who controls the foundations the next world is built upon. And when you look deeper, the cracks in America's foundation start to show. Control isn't about who owns factories, it's about who writes the standards that factories must follow. By mid-2025, according to Semiconductor Industry Association data, RISC-V-based processors captured 19% of global shipments, with projections hitting 26% by 2026, a trend no longer dismissible as fringe. More alarming for Washington, open-source consortia like the RISC-V International Association have shifted leadership outside U.S. jurisdiction to Switzerland, effectively neutering American regulatory influence. As tech ecosystems realign around modular, royalty-free platforms, traditional leverage points like licensing, patents, and sanctions are losing potency. Even if the US were to innovate faster in fabrication, it may find itself building chips for standards it no longer controls. The uncomfortable reality, as articulated by Harvard economist Graham Allison, is that hegemony isn't lost in a single battle. It's bled out through 1,000 quiet withdrawals. And if trends hold, the global semiconductor future might already be writing its next chapter, without Washington holding the pen. China didn't just win a race for a better chip, it's building the operating system for the next global economy and rewriting the rules faster than the West can react. But RISC-V may only be the opening move, because what Beijing is preparing next isn't just about semiconductors. It's about an entire new financial and technological architecture designed to lock America out before it even knows the game has changed. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.